listening to this. You are the resistance.
Sanctus, Sanctus, Sanctus Dominus Deus Sabaoth, plenis ut celi et terra, gloria tua, Hosanna in excelsis, benedictus qui venit in nomine Domini.
And he answered her, Thou knowest that Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am smooth. If my father shall feel me, and perceive it, I fear lest he will think I would have mocked him, and I shall bring upon me a curse instead of a blessing. And his mother said to him, Upon me be this curse, my son, only hear thou my voice, and go, fetch me the things which I have said. He went, and brought, and gave them to his mother. She dressed meats, such as she knew his father liked. And she put on him very good garments of Esau, which she had at home with her. And the little skins of the kids she put about his hands, and covered the bare of his neck. And she gave him the savory meat, and delivered him bread that she had baked. Which when he had carried in, he said, My father? But he answered, I hear. Who art thou, my son? And Jacob said, I am Esau thy firstborn, I have done as thou didst command me, arise, sit, and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac said to his son, How couldst thou find it so quickly, my son? He answered, It was the will of God, that what I sought came quickly in my way. I am Esau thy firstborn. St. Augustine, El Contramendatium, c. treating at large upon this place, excuseth Jacob from a lie, because this whole passage was mysterious, as relating to the preference which was afterwards to be given to the Gentiles before the carnal Jews, which Jacob by prophetic light might understand. So far is certain, that the first birthright, both by divine election and by Esau's free cession, belonged to Jacob, so that if there were any lie in the case, it could be no more than an officious and venial one. And Isaac said, Come hither, that I may feel thee, my son, and may prove whether thou be my son Esau, or not. He came near to his father, and when he had felt him, Isaac said, The voice indeed is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he knew him not, because his hairy hands made him like to the elder. Then blessing him, he said, Art thou my son Esau? He answered, I am. Then he said, Bring me the meats of thy hunting, my son, that my soul may bless thee. And when they were brought, and he had eaten, he offered him wine also, which after he had drunk, he said to him, Come near me, and give me a kiss, my son. He came near, and kissed him. And immediately as he smelled the fragrant smell of his garments, blessing him, he said, Behold, the smell of my son is as the smell of a plentiful field, which the Lord hath blessed. God give thee the dew of heaven, and of the fatness of the earth, abundance of corn and wine. And let peoples serve thee, and tribes worship thee. Be thou Lord of thy brethren, and let thy mother's children bow down before thee. Cursed be he that cursed thee, and let him that blesseth thee be filled with blessings. Isaac had scarce ended his words, when Jacob being now gone out abroad, Esau came, and brought into his father meats made of what he had taken in hunting, saying, Arise, my father, and eat of thy son's venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac said to him, Why? Who art thou? He answered, I am thy firstborn son Esau. Isaac was struck with fear, and astonished exceedingly, and wondering beyond what can be believed, said, Who is he then that even now brought me venison that he had taken, and I ate of all before thou camest? And I have blessed him, and he shall be blessed. Esau, having heard his father's words, roared out with a great cry, and being in a great consternation, said, Bless me also, my father. And he said, Thy brother came deceitfully and got thy blessing. But he said again, Rightly is his name called Jacob, for he hath supplanted me. Lo, this second time, my first birthright he took away before, and now this second time he hath stolen away my blessing. And again he said to his father, Hast thou not reserved me also a blessing? Isaac answered, I have appointed him thy lord, and have made all his brethren his servants. I have established him with corn and wine, and after this, what shall I do more for thee, my son? And Esau said to him, Hast thou only one blessing, father? I beseech thee, bless me also. And when he wept with a loud cry, Isaac, being moved, said to him, In the fat of the earth, and in the dew of heaven from above, shall thy blessing be. Thou shalt live by the sword and shalt serve thy brother, and the time shall come, when thou shalt shake off and loose his yoke from thy neck. Jacob, that is, a supplanter. Esau therefore always hated Jacob for the blessing wherewith his father had blessed him, and he said in his heart, The days will come of the mourning of my father, and I will kill my brother Jacob. These things were told to Rebekah, And she sent and called Jacob her son, and said to him, Behold, Esau thy brother threateneth to kill thee. Now therefore, my son, hear my voice, arise and flee to Laban my brother to Haran, and thou shalt dwell with him a few days, till the wrath of thy brother be assuaged, and his indignation cease, and he forget the things thou hast done to him. Afterwards I will send, and bring thee from thence hither. Why shall I be deprived of both my sons in one day? And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob take a wife of the stock of this land, I choose not to live. Jacob's journey to Mesopotamia, his vision and vow. And Isaac called Jacob, and blessed him, and charged him, saying, Take not a wife of the stock of Chanaan, but go, and take a journey to Mesopotamia of Syria, to the house of Bethuel thy mother's father, and take thee a wife thence of the daughters of Laban thy uncle. And God Almighty bless thee, and make thee to increase, and multiply thee, that thou mayst be a multitude of people. And give the blessings of Abraham to thee, and to thy seed after thee, that thou mayst possess the land of thy sojournment, which he promised to thy grandfather. And when Isaac had sent him away, he took his journey and went to Mesopotamia of Syria to Laban the son of Bethuel the Syrian, brother to Rebekah his mother. And Esau, seeing that his father had blessed Jacob, and had sent him into Mesopotamia of Syria, to marry a wife thence, and that after the blessing he had charged him, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Chanaan, and that Jacob obeying his parents was gone into Syria, experiencing also that his father was not well pleased with the daughters of Chanaan, he went to Ishmael, and took to wife, besides them he had before, Maleth the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nabajoth. But Jacob being departed from Bersabee, went on to Haran. And when he was come to a certain place, and would rest in it after sunset, he took of the stones that lay there, and putting under his head, slept in the same place. And he saw in his sleep a ladder standing upon the earth, and the top thereof touching heaven, the angels also of God ascending and descending by it, and the Lord leaning upon the ladder, saying to him, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land, wherein thou sleepest, I will give to thee and to thy seed. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south, and in thee and thy seed all the tribes of the earth shall be blessed. And I will be thy keeper whithersoever thou goest, and will bring thee back into this land, neither will I leave thee, till I shall have accomplished all that I have said. And when Jacob awaked out of sleep, he said, Indeed the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. And trembling he said, How terrible is this place! This is no other but the house of God, and the gate of heaven. And Jacob, arising in the morning, took the stone, which he had laid under his head, and set it up for a tidal, pouring oil upon the top of it. And he called the name of the city Bethel, which before was called Luzah. And he made a vow, saying, If God shall be with me, and shall keep me in the way by which I walk, and shall give me bread to eat, and raiment to put on. Bethel, this name signifies the house of God. And I shall return prosperously to my father's house, the Lord shall be my God, and this stone, which I have set up for a tidal, shall be called the house of God, and of all things that thou shalt give to me, I will offer tithes to thee. Jacob serveth Laban 7 years for Rachel, but is deceived with Leah, he afterwards marrieth Rachel. Leah bears him 4 sons. Then Jacob went on in his journey, and came into the east country. And he saw a well in the field, and 3 flocks of sheep lying by it, for the beasts were watered out of it, and the mouth thereof was closed with a great stone. And the custom was, when all the sheep were gathered together to roll away the stone, and after the sheep were watered, to put it on the mouth of the well again. And he said to the shepherds, Brethren, whence are you? They answered, Of Haran. And he asked them, saying, Know you Laban the son of Nachor? They said, We know him. He said, Is he in health? He is in health, say they, and behold Rachel his daughter cometh with his flock. And Jacob said, There is yet much day remaining, neither is it time to bring the flocks into the folds again. First give the sheep drink, and so lead them back to feed. They answered, we cannot, till all the cattle be gathered together, and we remove the stone from the well's mouth, that we may water the flocks. They were yet speaking, and behold, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she fed the flock. And when Jacob saw her, and knew her to be his cousin German, and that they were the sheep of Laban, his uncle, he removed the stone wherewith the well was closed. And having watered the flock, he kissed her, and lifting up his voice, wept. And he told her that he was her father's brother, and the son of Rebekah, but she went in haste and told her father, who, when he heard that Jacob his sister's son was come, ran forth to meet him, and embracing him, and heartily kissing him, brought him into his house. And when he had heard the causes of his journey, he answered, Thou art my bone and my flesh. And after the days of 1 month were expired, he said to him, Because thou art my brother, shalt thou serve me without wages? Tell me what wages thou wilt have. Now he had 2 daughters, the name of the elder was Leah, and the younger was called Rachel. But Leah was blear-eyed, Rachel was well-favored, and of a beautiful countenance. And Jacob being in love with her, said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel thy younger daughter. Laban answered, It is better that I give her to thee than to another man, stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed but a few days, because of the greatness of his love. And he said to Laban, Give me my wife, for now the time is fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. And he, having invited a great number of his friends to the feast, made the marriage. And at night he brought in Leah his daughter to him, giving his daughter a handmaid, named Zilpah. Now when Jacob had gone into her according to custom, when morning was come, he saw it was Leah, and he said to his father-in-law, What is it that thou didst mean to do? Did not I serve thee for Rachel? Why hast thou deceived me? Laban answered, It is not the custom in this place, to give the younger in marriage first. Make up the week of days of this match, and I will give thee her also, for the service that thou shalt render me other 7 years. He yielded to his pleasure, and after the week was past, he married Rachel, to whom her father gave Bala for her servant. And having at length obtained the marriage he wished for, he preferred the love of the latter before the former, and served with him other 7 years. And the Lord, seeing that he despised Leah, opened her womb, but her sister remained barren. And she conceived and bore a son, and called his name Reuben, saying, The Lord saw my affliction, now my husband will love me. And again she conceived and bore a son, and said, Because the Lord heard that I was despised, he hath given this also to me, and she called his name Simeon. And she conceived the 3rd time, and bore another son, and said, Now also my husband will be joined to me, because I have borne him 3 sons, and therefore she called his name Levi. The 4th time she conceived and bore a son, and said, Now will I praise the Lord, and for this she called him Judah. And she left bearing. Rachel, being barren, delivereth her handmaid to Jacob, she beareth 2 sons. Leah ceasing to bear, giveth also her handmaid, and she beareth 2 more. Then Leah beareth other 2 sons and 1 daughter. Rachel beareth Joseph. Jacob, desirous to return home, is hired to stay for a certain part of the flock's increase, whereby he becometh exceeding rich. And Rachel, seeing herself without children, envied her sister, and said to her husband, Give me children, otherwise I shall die. And Jacob, being angry with her, answered, Am I as God, who hath deprived thee of the fruit of thy womb? But she said, I have here my servant Bala, go in unto her, that she may bear upon my knees, and I may have children by her. And she gave him Bala in marriage, who, when her husband had gone in unto her, conceived and bore a son. And Rachel said, The Lord hath judged for me, and hath heard my voice, giving me a son, and therefore she called his name Dan. And again Bala conceived and bore another, for whom Rachel said, God hath compared me with my sister, and I have prevailed, and she called him Naphtali. Leah, perceiving that she had left off bearing, gave Zilpah her handmaid to her husband. And when she had conceived and brought forth a son, she said, Happily. And therefore called his name Gad. Zilpah also bore another. And Leah said, This is for my happiness, for women will call me blessed. Therefore she called him Aser. And Reuben, going out in the time of the wheat harvest into the field, found mandrakes, which he brought to his mother Leah. And Rachel said, Give me part of thy son's mandrakes. She answered, Dost thou think it a small matter, that thou hast taken my husband from me, unless thou take also my son's mandrakes? Rachel said, He shall sleep with thee this night, for thy son's mandrakes. And when Jacob returned at even from the field, Leah went out to meet him, and said, Thou shalt come in unto me, because I have hired thee for my son's mandrakes. And he slept with her that night. And God heard her prayers, and she conceived and bore the 5th son, and said, God hath given me a reward, because I gave my handmaid to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and bore the 6th son, and said, God hath endowed me with a good dowry, this turn also my husband will be with me, because I have borne him 6 sons, and therefore she called his name Zabulon. After whom she bore a daughter, named Dinah. The Lord also remembering Rachel, heard her, and opened her womb. And she conceived, and bore a son, saying, God hath taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, saying, The Lord give me also another son. And when Joseph was born, Jacob said to his father-in-law, Send me away that I may return into my country, into my land. Give me my wives, and my children, for whom I have served thee, that I may depart. Thou knowest the service that I have rendered thee. Laban said to him, Let me find favor in thy sight, I have learned by experience, that God hath blessed me for thy sake. Appoint thy wages which I shall give thee. But he answered, Thou knowest how I have served thee, and how great thy possession hath been in my hands. Thou hadst but little before I came to thee, and now thou art become rich, and the Lord hath blessed thee at my coming. It is reasonable therefore that I should now provide also for my own house. And Laban said, What shall I give thee? But he said, I require nothing, but if thou wilt do what I demand, I will feed, and keep thy sheep again. Go round through all thy flocks, and separate all the sheep of divers colors, and speckled, and all that is brown and spotted, and of divers colors, as well among the sheep, as among the goats, shall be my wages. And my justice shall answer for me tomorrow before thee when the time of the bargain shall come, and all that is not of divers colors, and spotted, and brown, as well among the sheep as among the goats, shall accuse me of theft. And Laban said, I like well what thou demandest. And he separated the same day the she-goats, and the sheep, and the he-goats, and the rams of divers colors, and spotted, and all the flock of one color, that is, of white and black fleece, he delivered into the hands of his sons. And he set the space of 3 days' journey betwixt himself and his son-in-law, who fed the rest of his flock. And Jacob took green rods of poplar, and of almond, and of plane trees, and pilled them in part, so when the bark was taken off, in the parts that were pilled, there appeared whiteness, but the parts that were whole remained green, and by this means the color was divers. And he put them in the troughs, where the water was poured out, that when the flocks should come to drink, they might have the rods before their eyes, and in the sight of them might conceive. And it came to pass that in the very heat of coition, the sheep beheld the rods, and brought forth spotted, and of divers colors, and speckled. And Jacob separated the flock, and put the rods in the troughs before the eyes of the rams, and all the white and the black were Laban's, and the rest were Jacob's, when the flocks were separated one from the other. So when the ewes went first to ram, Jacob put the rods in the troughs of water before the eyes of the rams, and of the ewes, that they might conceive while they were looking upon them. But when the latter coming was, and the last conceiving, he did not put them. And those that were lateward, became Laban's, and they of the first time, Jacob's. And the man was enriched exceedingly, and he had many flocks, maidservants and menservants, camels and asses. Jacob's departure, he is pursued and overtaken by Laban. They make a covenant. But after that he heard the words of the sons of Laban, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and being enriched by his substance is become great, and perceiving also that Laban's countenance was not towards him as yesterday and the other day, especially the Lord saying to him, Return into the land of thy fathers, and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. he sent, and called Rachel and Leah into the field, where he fed the flocks, and said to them, I see your father's countenance is not towards me as yesterday and the other day, but the God of my father hath been with me. And you know that I have served your father to the uttermost of my power. Yea, your father also hath overreached me, and hath changed my wages 10 times, and yet God hath not suffered him to hurt me. If at any time he said, The speckled shall be thy wages, all the sheep brought forth speckled, but when he said on the contrary, Thou shalt take all the white ones for thy wages, all the flocks brought forth white ones. And God hath taken your father's substance, and given it to me. For after that time came of the ewes conceiving, I lifted up my eyes, and saw in my sleep that the males which leaped upon the females were of divers colors, and spotted, and speckled. And the angel of God said to me in my sleep, Jacob? And I answered, Here I am. And he said, Lift up thy eyes, and see that all the males leaping upon the females, are of divers colors, spotted, and speckled. For I have seen all that Laban hath done to thee. I am the God of Bethel, where thou didst anoint the stone, and make a vow to me. Now therefore arise, and go out of this land, and return into thy native country. And Rachel and Leah answered, Have we anything left among the goods and inheritance of our father's house? Hath he not counted us as strangers and sold us, and eaten up the price of us? But God hath taken our father's riches, and delivered them to us, and to our children, wherefore do all that God hath commanded thee. Then Jacob rose up, and having set his children and wives upon camels, went his way. And he took all his substance, and flocks, and whatsoever he had gotten in Mesopotamia, and went forward to Isaac his father to the land of Canaan. At that time Laban was gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole away her father's idols. And Jacob would not confess to his father-in-law that he was flying away. Her father's idols. By this it appears that Laban was an idolater, and some of the fathers are of opinion that Rachel stole away these idols to withdraw him from idolatry, removing the occasion of his sin. And when he was gone, together with all that belonged to him, and having passed the river, was going on towards Mount Galad, it was told Laban on the 3rd day that Jacob fled. And he took his brethren with him, and pursued after him 7 days, and overtook him in the mount of Galad. And he saw in a dream God saying to him, Take heed thou speak not anything harshly against Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mountain, and when he with his brethren had overtaken him, he pitched his tent in the same mount of Galad. And he said to Jacob, Why hast thou done thus, to carry away, without my knowledge, my daughters, as captives taken with the sword? Why wouldst thou run away privately and not acquaint me, that I might have brought thee on the way with joy, and with songs, and with timbrels, and with harps? Thou hast not suffered me to kiss my sons and daughters, thou hast done foolishly, and now, indeed, it is in my power to return thee evil, but the God of your father said to me yesterday, Take heed thou speak not anything harshly against Jacob. Suppose thou didst desire to go to thy friends, and hadst a longing after thy father's house, why hast thou stolen away my gods? Jacob answered, That I departed unknown to thee, it was for fear lest thou wouldst take away thy daughters by force. But whereas thou chargest me with theft, with whomsoever thou shalt find thy gods, let him be slain before our brethren. Search, and if thou find any of thy things with me, take them away. Now when he said this, he knew not that Rachel had stolen the idols. So Laban went into the tent of Jacob, and of Leah, and of both the handmaids, and found them not. And when he was entered into Rachel's tent, she in haste hid the idols under the camel's furniture, and sat upon them. And when he had searched all the tent, and found nothing, she said, Let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise up before thee, because it has now happened to me, according to the custom of women. So his careful search was in vain. And Jacob being angry, said in a chiding manner, For what fault of mine, and for what offense on my part hast thou so hotly pursued me, and searched all my household stuff? What hast thou found of all the substance of thy house? Lay it here before my brethren, and thy brethren, and let them judge between me and thee. Have I therefore been with thee 20 years? Thy ewes and goats were not barren, the rams of thy flocks I did not eat, neither did I show thee that which the beast had torn. I made good all the damage, whatsoever was lost by theft, thou didst exact it of me. Day and night was I parched with heat, and with frost, and sleep departed from my eyes. And in this manner have I served thee in thy house 20 years, 14 for thy daughters, and 6 for thy flocks. Thou hast changed also my wages 10 times. Unless the God of my father Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had stood by me, peradventure now thou hadst sent me away naked. God beheld my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesterday. Laban answered him, The daughters are mine and the children, and thy flocks, and all things that thou sayest are mine. What can I do to my children, and grandchildren? Come therefore, let us enter into a league, that it may be for a testimony between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone, and set it up for a title. And he said to his brethren, Bring hither stones. And they gathering stones together, made a heap, and they ate upon it. And Laban called it the witness heap, and Jacob, the hillock of testimony, each of them according to the propriety of his language. And Laban said, This heap shall be a witness between me and thee this day, and therefore the name thereof was called Galad, that is, the witness heap. The Lord behold and judge between us when we shall be gone one from the other. If thou afflict my daughters, and if thou bring in other wives over them, none is witness of our speech but God, who is present and beholdeth. And he said again to Jacob, Behold, this heap, and the stone which I have set up between me and thee, shall be a witness. This heap, I say, and the stone, be they for a testimony, if either I shall pass beyond it going towards thee, or thou shalt pass beyond it, thinking harm to me. The God of Abraham, and the God of Nachor, the God of their father, judge between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. And after he had offered sacrifices in the mountain, he called his brethren to eat bread. And when they had eaten, they lodged there. But Laban arose in the night, and kissed his sons, and daughters, and blessed them, and returned to his place. Jacob's vision of angels, his message and presents to Esau, his wrestling with an angel. Jacob also went on the journey he had begun, and the angels of God met him. And when he saw them, he said, These are the camps of God, and he called the name of that place Mahanaim, that is, camps. And he sent messengers before him to Esau his brother to the land of Seir to the country of Edom, and he commanded them, saying, Thus shall ye speak to my lord Esau, Thus saith thy brother Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban, and have been with him until this day. I have oxen, and asses, and sheep, and men servants, and women servants, and now I send a message to my lord, that I may find favor in thy sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to Esau thy brother, and behold he cometh with speed to meet thee with 400 men. Then Jacob was greatly afraid, and in his fear divided the people that was with him, and the flocks, and the sheep, and the oxen, and the camels, into 2 companies, saying, If Esau come to one company and destroy it, the other company that is left shall escape. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who saidst to me, Return to thy land and to the place of thy birth, and I will do well for thee, I am not worthy of the least of all thy mercies, and of thy truth which thou hast fulfilled to thy servant. With my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I return with 2 companies. Deliver me from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am greatly afraid of him, lest perhaps he come, and kill the mother with the children. Thou didst say that thou wouldst do well by me, and multiply my seed like the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. And when he had slept there that night, he set apart, of the things which he had, presents for his brother Esau. 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 milch camels with their colts, 40 kine, and 20 bulls, 20 she-asses, and 10 of their foals. And he sent them by the hands of his servants, every drove by itself, and he said to his servants, Go before me, and let there be a space between drove and drove. And he commanded the first, saying, If thou meet my brother Esau, and he ask thee, Whose art thou? Or whither goest thou? Or whose are these before thee? Thou shalt answer, Thy servant Jacob's. he hath sent them as a present to my lord Esau, and he cometh after us. In like manner he commanded the second and the third, and all that followed the droves, saying, Speak ye the same words to Esau, when ye find him. And ye shall add, Thy servant Jacob himself also followeth after us, for he said, I will appease him with the presents that go before, and afterwards I will see him, perhaps he will be gracious to me. So the presents went before him, but himself lodged the night in the camp. And rising early he took his 2 wives, and his 2 handmaids, with his 11 sons, and passed over the ford of Jabbok. And when all things were brought over that belonged to him, he remained alone, and behold a man wrestled with him till morning. And when he saw that he could not overcome him, he touched the sinew of his thigh, and forthwith it shrank. A man, this was an angel in human shape, as we learn from Mazi. He is called God, Ver. And, because he represented the person of the Son of God. This wrestling, in which Jacob, assisted by God, was a match for an angel, was so ordered, Ver, that he might learn by this experiment of the divine assistance, that neither Esau, nor any other man, should have power to hurt him. It was also spiritual, as appeareth by his earnest prayer, urging and at last obtaining the angel's blessing. And he said to him, Let me go, for it is break of day. He answered, I will not let thee go except thou bless me. And he said, What is thy name? He answered, Jacob. But he said, Thy name shall not be called Jacob, but Israel, for if thou hast been strong against God, how much more shalt thou prevail against men? Jacob asked him, Tell me by what name art thou called? He answered, Why dost thou ask my name? And he blessed him in the same place. And Jacob called the name of the place Phanuel, saying, I have seen God face to face, and my soul has been saved. Phanuel, this word signifies the face of God, or the sight, or seeing of God. And immediately the sun rose upon him, after he was past Phanuel, but he halted on his foot. Therefore the children of Israel, unto this day, eat not the sinew, that shrank in Jacob's thigh, because he touched the sinew of his thigh and it shrank. Jacob and Esau meet. Jacob goeth to Salem, where he raiseth an altar. And Jacob lifting up his eyes, saw Esau coming, and with him 400 men, and he divided the children of Leah, and of Rachel, and of the 2 handmaids, and he put both the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children in the second place, and Rachel and Joseph last. And he went forward and bowed down with his face to the ground 7 times until his brother came near. Then Esau ran to meet his brother, and embraced him, and clasping him fast about the neck, and kissing him, wept. And lifting up his eyes, he saw the women and their children, and said, What mean these? And do they belong to thee? He answered, They are the children which God hath given to me thy servant. Then the handmaids and their children came near, and bowed themselves. Leah also with her children came near, and bowed down in like manner, and last of all Joseph and Rachel bowed down. And Esau said, What are the droves that I met? He answered, That I might find favor before my lord. But he said, I have plenty, my brother, keep what is thine for thyself. And Jacob said, Do not so I beseech thee, but if I have found favor in thy eyes, receive a little present at my hands, for I have seen thy face, as if I should have seen the countenance of God, be gracious to me. And take the blessing, which I have brought thee, and which God hath given me, who giveth all things. He took it with much ado at his brother's earnest pressing him, and said, Let us go on together, and I will accompany thee in thy journey. And Jacob said, My lord, thou knowest that I have with me tender children, and sheep, and kine with young, which if I should cause to be overdriven, in one day all the flocks will die. May it please my lord to go before his servant, and I will follow softly after him, as I shall see my children to be able, until I come to my lord in Seir. Esau answered, I beseech thee, that some of the people at least, who are with me, may stay to accompany thee in the way. And he said, There is no necessity, I want nothing else but only to find favor, my lord, in thy sight. So Esau returned, that day, the way that he came, to Seir. And Jacob came to Succoth, where having built a house, and pitched tents, he called the name of the place Succoth, that is, tents. And he passed over to Salem, a city of the Sychemites, which is in the land of Chanaan, after he returned from Mesopotamia of Syria, and he dwelt by the town, and he bought that part of the field, in which he pitched his tents, of the children of Hemer, the father of Sichem, for 100 lambs. And raising an altar there, he invoked upon it the most mighty God of Israel. Dinah is ravished, for which the Sychemites are destroyed. And Dinah the daughter of Leah went out to see the women of that country. And when Sichem the son of Hemer the Hivite, the prince of that land, saw her, he was in love with her, and took her away, and lay with her, ravishing the virgin. And his soul was fast knit unto her, and whereas she was sad, he comforted her with sweet words. And going to Hemer his father, he said, Get me this damsel to wife. But when Jacob had heard this, his sons being absent, and employed in feeding the cattle, he held his peace till they came back. And when Hemer the father of Sichem was come out to speak to Jacob, behold, his sons came from the field, and hearing what had passed, they were exceeding angry, because he had done a foul thing in Israel, and committed an unlawful act, in ravishing Jacob's daughter. And Hemer spoke to them, The soul of my son Sichem has a longing for your daughter, give her him to wife, and let us contract marriages one with another, give us your daughters and take you our daughters, and dwell with us, the land is at your command, till, trade, and possess it. Sichem also said to her father and to her brethren, Let me find favor in your sight, and whatsoever you shall appoint I will give. Raise the dowry, and ask gifts, and I will gladly give what you shall demand, only give me this damsel to wife. The sons of Jacob answered Sichem and his father deceitfully, being enraged at the deflowering of their sister, We cannot do what you demand, nor give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, which with us is unlawful and abominable. But in this we may be allied with you, if you will be like us, and all the male sex among you be circumcised. Deceitfully, the sons of Jacob, on this occasion, were guilty of a grievous sin, as well by falsely pretending religion, as by excess of revenge, though otherwise their zeal against so foul a crime was commendable. Then will we mutually give and take your daughters, and ours, and we will dwell with you, and will be one people, but if you will not be circumcised, we will take our daughter and depart. Their offer pleased Hemer, and Sichem his son, and the young man made no delay, but forthwith fulfilled what was required, for he loved the damsel exceedingly, and he was the greatest man in all his father's house. And going into the gate of the city they spoke to the people. These men are peaceable and willing to dwell with us, let them trade in the land, and till it, which being large and wide wanteth men to till it, we shall take their daughters for wives, and we will give them ours. One thing there is for which so great a good is deferred, we must circumcise every male among us, following the manner of the nation. And their substance, and cattle, and all that they possess, shall be ours, only in this let us condescend, and by dwelling together, we shall make one people. And they all agreed, and circumcised all the males. And behold, the third day, when the pain of the wound was greatest, two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon, and Levi, the brothers of Dinah, taking their swords, entered boldly into the city, and slew all the men. And they killed also Hemer and Sichem, and took away their sister Dinah, out of Sychem's house. And when they were gone out, the other sons of Jacob came upon the slain, and plundered the city in revenge of the rape. And they took their sheep and their herds and their asses, wasting all they had in their houses and in the fields. And their children and wives they took captive, and when they had boldly perpetrated these things, Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, You have troubled me, and made me hateful to the Canaanites and Perizzites, the inhabitants of this land. We are few, they will gather themselves together and kill me, and both I, and my house, shall be destroyed. They answered, Should they abuse our sister as a trumpet? Jacob purgeth his family from idols, goeth by God's commandment to Bethel, and there buildeth an altar. God appearing again to Jacob blesseth him, and changeth his name into Israel. Rachel dieth in childbirth. Isaac also dieth. In the meantime God said to Jacob, Arise, and go up to Bethel, and dwell there, and make there an altar to God, who appeared to thee when thou didst flee from Esau thy brother. And Jacob having called together all his household, said, Cast away the strange gods that are among you, and be cleansed and change your garments. Arise, and let us go up to Bethel, that we may make there an altar to God, who heard me in the day of my affliction, and accompanied me in my journey. So they gave him all the strange gods they had, and the earrings which were in their ears, and he buried them under the turpentine tree, that is behind the city of Sychem. And when they were departed, the terror of God fell upon all the cities round about, and they durst not pursue after them as they went away. And Jacob came to Luzah, which is in the land of Chanaan, surnamed Bethel, he and all the people that were with him. And he built there an altar, and called the name of that place, the house of God, for there God appeared to him when he fled from his brother. At the same time Deborah the nurse of Rebekah died, and was buried at the foot of Bethel under an oak, and the name of that place was called, the Oak of Weeping. And God appeared again to Jacob, after he returned from Mesopotamia of Syria, and he blessed him, saying, Thou shalt not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called him Israel. Israel, this name signifieth one that prevaileth with God. And said to him, I am God Almighty, increase thou and be multiplied. Nations and peoples of nations shall be from thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. And the land which I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I will give to thee, and to thy seed after thee. And he departed from him. But he set up a monument of stone, in the place where God had spoken to him, pouring drink offerings upon it, and pouring oil thereon, and calling the name of that place Bethel. And going forth from thence, he came in the springtime to the land which leadeth to Ephratah, wherein when Rachel was in travail, by reason of her hard labor she began to be in danger, and the midwife said to her, Fear not, for thou shalt have this son also. And when her soul was departing for pain, and death was now at hand, she called the name of her son Benoni, that is, the son of my pain, but his father called him Benjamin, that is, the son of the right hand. So Rachel died, and was buried in the highway that leadeth to Ephratah, this is Bethlehem. And Jacob erected a pillar over her sepulchre, this is the pillar of Rachel's monument, to this day. Departing thence, he pitched his tent beyond the flock tower. And when he dwelt in that country, Reuben went, and slept with Bala, the concubine of his father, which he was not ignorant of. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. The sons of Leah, Reuben the firstborn, and Simeon, and Levi, and Judah, and Issachar, and Zabulon. The sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bala, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. The concubine, she was his lawful wife, but, according to the style of the Hebrews, is called concubine, because of her servile extraction. The sons of Zelphah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Aser, these are the sons of Jacob, that were born to him in Mesopotamia of Syria. And he came to Isaac his father in Mamre, the city of Arbi, this is Hebron, wherein Abraham and Isaac sojourned. And the days of Isaac were 180 years. And being spent with age he died, and was gathered to his people, being old and full of days, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. Esau with his wives and children parteth from Jacob. An account of his descendants, and of the first kings of Edom. And these are the generations of Esau, the same as Edom. Esau took wives of the daughters of Chanaan, Adah the daughter of Elon the Hethite, and Oholibamah the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Sebeon the Hevite, and Basemath the daughter of Ishmael, sister of Nabajoth. And Adah bore Eliphaz, Basemath bore Reuel, Oholibamah bore Jehus and Ihelan and Kor. These are the sons of Esau, that were born to him in the land of Chanaan. Adah, these wives of Esau are called by other names, general. But it was very common amongst the ancients for the same persons to have two names, as Esau himself was also called Edom. And Esau took his wives and his sons and daughters, and every soul of his house, and his substance, and cattle, and all that he was able to acquire in the land of Chanaan, and went into another country, and departed from his brother Jacob. For they were exceeding rich, and could not dwell together, neither was the land in which they sojourned able to bear them, for the multitude of their flocks. And Esau dwelt in Mount Seir, he is Edom. And these are the generations of Esau the father of Edom in Mount Seir, And these the names of his sons: Eliphaz the son of Ada the wife of Esau, and Reuel the son of Basemath his wife. And Eliphaz had sons, Thaman, Omar, Sapho, and Gatham, and Senez. And Thamah was the concubine of Eliphaz the son of Esau, and she bore him Amalek. These are the sons of Ada the wife of Esau. And the sons of Reuel were Nahath and Zara, Sama and Mezah. These were the sons of Basemath the wife of Esau. And these were the sons of Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Sebeon, the wife of Esau, whom she bore to him, Jehus, and Ahilan, and Kor. These were dukes of the sons of Esau, the sons of Eliphaz the firstborn of Esau, Duke Thaman, Duke Omar, Duke Sapho, Duke Senez, Duke Kor, Duke Gatham, Duke Amalek. These are the sons of Eliphaz, in the land of Edom, and these the sons of Ada. And these were the sons of Reuel, the son of Esau, Duke Nahath, Duke Zara, Duke Sama, Duke Mezah. And these are the dukes of Reuel, in the land of Edom, these the sons of Basemath the wife of Esau. And these the sons of Oholibamah the wife of Esau, Duke Jehus, Duke Ahilan, Duke Kor. These are the dukes of Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, and wife of Esau. These are the sons of Esau, and these the dukes of them, the same as Edom. These are the sons of Seir the Horite, the inhabitants of the land, Lotan, and Sabal, and Sebeon, and Anna, and Disan, and Dizar, and Disan. These are dukes of the Horites, the sons of Seir in the land of Edom. And Lotan had sons, Hori and Heman. And the sister of Lotan was Thamah. And these the sons of Sabal, Alvan and Manahat, and Abel, and Sapho, and Oman. And these the sons of Sebeon, Ai and Anna. This is Anna that found the hot waters in the wilderness, when he fed the asses of Sebeon his father, and he had a son Disan, and a daughter Oholibamah. And these were the sons of Disan, Hamdan, and Ispan, and Jethram, and Tran. These also were the sons of Izar, Balan, and Zavan, and Achan. And Disan had sons, Hus, and Aram. These were dukes of the Horites, Duke Lotan, Duke Sabal, Duke Sebeon, Duke Anna, Duke Disan, Duke Izar, Duke Disan. These were dukes of the Horites that ruled in the land of Seir. And the kings that ruled in the land of Edom, before the children of Israel had a king, were these: Bela the son of Baar, and the name of his city Deneb. And Bela died, and Jobab the son of Zara of Basra reigned in his stead. And when Jobab was dead, Husam of the land of the Thamanites reigned in his stead. And after his death, Edad the son of Badad reigned in his stead, who defeated the Madianites in the country of Moab, and the name of his city was Avith. And when Edad was dead, there reigned in his stead, Semlah of Masrekah. And he being dead, Saul of the river Rehoboth reigned in his stead. And when he also was dead, Balan and the sons of Achbor succeeded to the kingdom. This man also being dead, Adar reigned in his place, and the name of his city was Fa, and his wife was called Metabel, the daughter of Matarid, daughter of Mezab. And these are the names of the dukes of Esau and their kindreds, and places, and callings: Duke Thamah, Duke Alva, Duke Jethath, Duke Oholibamah, Duke Ela, Duke Phinon, Duke Senez, Duke Thaman, Duke Mobzar, Duke Magdiel, Duke Hiram. These are the dukes of Edom dwelling in the land of their government, the same as Esau the father of the Edomites. Joseph's dreams: he is sold by his brethren, and carried into Egypt. And Jacob dwelt in the land of Chanaan wherein his father sojourned. And these are his generations: Joseph, when he was 16 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, being but a boy, and he was with the sons of Bala and of Zelpha his father's wives, and he accused his brethren to his father of a most wicked crime. Now Israel loved Joseph above all his sons, because he had him in his old age, and he made him a coat of divers colors. And his brethren, seeing that he was loved by his father, more than all his sons, hated him, and could not speak peaceably to him. Now it fell out also that he told his brethren a dream, that he had dreamed, which occasioned them to hate him the more. A dream. These dreams of Joseph were prophetical, and sent from God, as were also those which he interpreted, general. And, otherwise generally speaking, the observing of dreams is condemned in the Scripture, as superstitious and sinful. C. Ackley. And he said to them, Hear my dream which I dreamed. I thought we were binding sheaves in the field, and my sheaf arose as it were, and stood, and your sheaves standing about, bowed down before my sheaf. His brethren answered, Shalt thou be our king? Or shall we be subject to thy dominion? Therefore this matter of his dreams and words ministered nourishment to their envy and hatred. He dreamed also another dream, which he told his brethren, saying, I saw in a dream, as it were the sun, and the moon, and 11 stars worshipping me. And when he had told this to his father and brethren, his father rebuked him, and said, What meaneth this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother, and thy brethren worship thee upon the earth? Worship, this word is not used here to signify divine worship, but an inferior veneration, expressed by the bowing of the body, and that, according to the manner of the Eastern nations, down to the ground. His brethren therefore envied him, but his father considered the thing with himself. And when his brethren abode in Sychem feeding their father's flocks, Israel said to him, Thy brethren feed the sheep in Sychem, come, I will send thee to them. And when he answered, I am ready, he said to him, Go, and see if all things be well with thy brethren, and the cattle, and bring me word again what is doing. So being sent from the vale of Hebron, he came to Sychem, and a man found him there wandering in the field, and asked what he sought. But he answered, I seek my brethren, tell me where they feed the flocks. And the man said to him, They are departed from this place, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dathan. And Joseph went forward after his brethren, and found them in Dathan. And when they saw him afar off, before he came nigh them, they thought to kill him. And said one to another, Behold, the dreamer cometh. Come, let us kill him, and cast him into some old pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and then it shall appear what his dreams avail him. And Reuben hearing this, endeavored to deliver him out of their hands, and said, Do not take away his life, nor shed his blood, but cast him into this pit, that is in the wilderness, and keep your hands harmless. Now he said this, being desirous to deliver him out of their hands and to restore him to his father. And as soon as he came to his brethren, they forthwith stripped him of his outside coat, that was of divers colors, and cast him into an old pit, where there was no water. And sitting down to eat bread, they saw some Ishmaelites on their way coming from Galilee, with their camels, carrying spices, and balm, and myrrh to Egypt. And Judah said to his brethren, What will it profit us to kill our brother, and conceal his blood? It is better that he be sold to the Ishmaelites, and that our hands be not defiled, for he is our brother and our flesh. His brethren agreed to his words. And when the Madianite merchants passed by, they drew him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites, for 20 pieces of silver, and they led him into Egypt. And Reuben, returning to the pit, found not the boy, and rending his garments he went to his brethren, and said, The boy doth not appear, and whither shall I go? And they took his coat, and dipped it in the blood of a kid, which they had killed, sending some to carry it to their father, and to say, This we have found, see whether it be thy son's coat, or not. And the father acknowledging it, said, It is my son's coat, an evil wild beast hath eaten him, a beast hath devoured Joseph. And tearing his garments, he put on sackcloth, mourning for his son a long time. And all his children being gathered together to comfort their father in his sorrow, he would not receive comfort, but said, I will go down to my son into hell, mourning. And whilst he continued weeping into hell, that is, into limbo, the place where the souls of the just were received before the death of our Redeemer. For allowing that the word hell sometimes is taken for the grave, it cannot be so taken in this place, since Jacob did not believe his son to be in the grave, whom he supposed to be devoured by a wild beast, and therefore could not mean to go down to him thither, but certainly meant the place of rest where he believed his soul to be. The Madianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, an eunuch of Pharaoh, captain of the soldiers. An eunuch, this word sometimes signifies a chamberlain, courtier, or officer of the king, and so it is taken in this place. The sons of Judah, the death of Hur and Onan, the birth of Phares and Zara. At that time Judah went down from his brethren, and turned into a certain Odoamite, named Hyrez. and he saw there the daughter of a man of Chanaan, called Sue, and taking her to wife, he went in unto her. And she conceived, and bore a son, and called his name Her. And conceiving again, she bore a son, and called him Onan. She bore also a third, whom she called Selah. After whose birth, she ceased to bear any more. And Judah took a wife for her his firstborn, whose name was Thamar. And her, the firstborn of Judah, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and was slain by him. Judah, therefore said to Onan his son, Go into thy brother's wife and marry her, that thou mayst trace seed to thy brother. He, knowing that the children should not be his, when he went into his brother's wife, spilled his seed upon the ground, lest children should be born in his brother's name. And therefore the Lord slew him, because he did a detestable thing. Wherefore Judah said to Thamar his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow in thy father's house, till Selah my son grow up, for he was afraid lest he also might die, as his brethren did. She went her way and dwelt in her father's house. And after many days were past, the daughter of Sue the wife of Judah died, and when he had taken comfort after his mourning, he went up to Thamnaz, to the shearers of his sheep, he and hires the Odoamite the shepherd of his flock. And it was told Thamar that her father-in-law was come up to Thamnaz to shear his sheep. And she put off the garments of her widowhood, and took a veil, and changing her dress, sat in the crossway, that leadeth to Thamnaz, because Selah was grown up, and she had not been married to him. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, for she had covered her face, lest she should be known. And going to her, he said, Suffer me to lie with thee, for he knew her not to be his daughter-in-law. And she answered, What wilt thou give me to enjoy my company? He said, I will send thee a kid out of the flock. And when she said again, I will suffer what thou wilt, if thou give a pledge, till thou send what thou promisest, Judah said, What wilt thou have for a pledge? She answered, Thy ring and bracelet, and the staff which thou holdest in thy hand. The woman therefore at one copulation conceived. And she arose and went her way, and putting off the apparel which she had taken, put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent a kid by his shepherd, the Odoamite, that he might receive the pledge again, which he had given to the woman, but he, not finding her, asked the men of that place, Where is the woman that sat in the crossway? And when they all made answer, There was no harlot in this place, he returned to Judah, and said to him, I have not found her. Moreover the men of that place said to me, that there never sat a harlot there. Judah said, Let her take it to herself, surely she cannot charge us with a lie. I sent the kid which I promised, and thou didst not find her. And behold, after 3 months they told Judah, saying, Thamar, thy daughter-in-law hath played the harlot, and she appeareth to have a big belly. And Judah said, Bring her out that she may be burned. But when she was led to execution, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man, to whom these things belong, I am with child. See whose ring, and bracelet, and staff this is. But he, acknowledging the gifts, said, She is juster than I, because I did not give her to Selah, my son. However, he knew her no more. And when she was ready to be brought to bed, there appeared twins in her womb, and in the very delivery of the infants, one put forth a hand, whereon the midwife tied a scarlet thread, saying, This shall come forth the first. But he, drawing back his hand, the other came forth, and the woman said, Why is the partition divided for thee? And therefore called his name Phares. Afterwards his brother came out, on whose hand was the scarlet thread, and she called him Zara. Phares, that is, a breach or division. Joseph hath charge of his master's house, rejecteth his mistress's solicitations, is falsely accused by her, and cast into prison, where he hath the charge of all the prisoners. And Joseph was brought into Egypt, and Potiphar, an eunuch of Pharaoh, chief captain of the army, an Egyptian, bought him of the Ishmaelites, by whom he was brought. And the Lord was with him, and he was a prosperous man in all things, and he dwelt in his master's house, who knew very well that the Lord was with him, and made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found favor in the sight of his master, and ministered to him, and being set over all by him, he governed the house committed to him, and all things that were delivered to him, And the Lord blessed the house of the Egyptian for Joseph's sake, and multiplied all his substance, both at home, and in the fields. Neither knew he any other thing, but the bread which he ate. And Joseph was of a beautiful countenance, and comely to behold. And after many days his mistress cast her eyes on Joseph, and said, Lie with me. But he, in no wise consenting to that wicked act, said to her, Behold, my master hath delivered all things to me, and knoweth not what he hath in his own house, neither is there anything which is not in my power, or that he hath not delivered to me, but thee, who art his wife. How then can I do this wicked thing, and sin against my God? With such words as these day by day, both the woman was importunate with the young man, and he refused the adultery. Now it happened on a certain day, that Joseph went into the house, and was doing some business without any man with him, and she catching the skirts of his garment, said, Lie with me. But he leaving the garment in her hand, fled, and went out. And when the woman saw the garment in her hands, and herself disregarded, she called to her the men of her house, and said to them, See, he hath brought in a Hebrew, to abuse us. He came in to me, to lie with me, and when I cried out, and he heard my voice, he left the garment that I held, and got him out. For a proof therefore of her fidelity, she kept the garment, and showed it to her husband when he returned home, and said, The Hebrew servant, whom thou hast brought, came to me to abuse me. And when he heard me cry, he left the garment which I held, and fled out. His master hearing these things, and giving too much credit to his wife's words, was very angry, and cast Joseph into the prison, where the king's prisoners were kept, and he was there shut up. A proof therefore of her fidelity, or an argument to gain credit, argumentum fidei. But the Lord was with Joseph, and having mercy upon him gave him favor in the sight of the chief keeper of the prison, who delivered into his hand all the prisoners that were kept in custody, and whatsoever was done was under him. Neither did he himself know anything, having committed all things to him, for the Lord was with him, and made all that he did to prosper. Joseph interpreteth the dreams of two of Pharaoh's servants in prison. The event declareth the interpretations to be true, but Joseph is forgotten. After this, it came to pass, that two eunuchs, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, offended their lord. And Pharaoh being angry with them, now the one was chief butler, the other chief baker, he sent them to the prison of the commander of the soldiers, in which Joseph also was prisoner, but the keeper of the prison delivered them to Joseph, and he served them. Some little time passed, and they were kept in custody. And they both dreamed a dream the same night, according to the interpretation agreeing to themselves. And when Joseph was come in to them in the morning, and saw them sad, he asked them, saying, Why is your countenance sadder today than usual? They answered, We have dreamed a dream, and there is nobody to interpret it to us. And Joseph said to them, Doth not interpretation belong to God? Tell me what you have dreamed. The chief butler first told his dream. I saw before me a vine, on which were 3 branches, which by little and little sent out buds, and after the blossoms brought forth ripe grapes. Doth not interpretation belong to God? When dreams are from God, as these were, the interpretation of them is a gift of God. But the generality of dreams are not of this sort, but either proceed from the natural complexions and dispositions of persons, or the roving of their imaginations in the day on such objects as they are much affected with, or from their mind being disturbed with cares and troubles, and oppressed with bodily infirmities, or they are suggested by evil spirits, to flatter, or to terrify weak minds, in order to gain belief, and so draw them into error or superstition, or at least to trouble them in their sleep, whom they cannot move when they are awake, so that the general rule, with regard to dreams, is not to observe them, nor to give any credit to them. And the cup of Pharaoh was in my hand, and I took the grapes, and pressed them into the cup which I held, and I gave the cup to Pharaoh. Joseph answered, This is the interpretation of the dream, the 3 branches are yet 3 days, after which Pharaoh will remember thy service, and will restore thee to thy former place, and thou shalt present him the cup according to thy office, as before thou wast wont to do. Only remember me, when it shall be well with thee, and do me this kindness, to put Pharaoh in mind to take me out of this prison, for I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here without any fault was cast into the dungeon. The chief baker, seeing that he had wisely interpreted the dream, said, I also dreamed a dream, that I had 3 baskets of meal upon my head, and that in one basket which was uppermost, I carried all meats that are made by the art of baking, and that the birds ate out of it. Joseph answered, This is the interpretation of the dream, the 3 baskets are yet 3 days, after which Pharaoh will take thy head from thee, and hang thee on the cross, and the birds shall tear thy flesh. The 3rd day after this was the birthday of Pharaoh, and he made a great feast for his servants, and at the banquet remembered the chief butler, and the chief baker. And he restored the one to his place to present him the cup, the other he hanged on a gibbet, that the truth of the interpreter might be shown. But the chief butler, when things prospered with him, forgot his interpreter. Joseph interpreteth the 2 dreams of Pharaoh, he is made ruler over all Egypt. After 2 years Pharaoh had a dream. He thought he stood by the river, out of which came up 7 kine, very beautiful and fat, and they fed in marshy places. Other 7 also came up out of the river, ill-favored, and lean-fleshed, and they fed on the very bank of the river, in green places, and they devoured them, whose bodies were very beautiful and well-conditioned. So Pharaoh awoke. He slept again, and dreamed another dream. 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk full and fair. Then 7 other ears sprung up thin and blasted, and devoured all the beauty of the former. Pharaoh awaked after his rest, and when morning was come, being struck with fear, he sent to all the interpreters of Egypt, and to all the wise men, and they being called for, he told them his dream, and there was not any one that could interpret it. Then at length the chief butler remembering, said, I confess my sin. The king being angry with his servants, commanded me and the chief baker to be cast into the prison of the captain of the soldiers. Wherein one night both of us dreamed a dream foreboding things to come. There was there a young man, a Hebrew, servant to the same captain of the soldiers, to whom we told our dreams, and we heard what afterwards the event of the thing proved to be so. For I was restored to my office, and he was hanged upon a gibbet. Forthwith at the king's command, Joseph was brought out of the prison, and they shaved him, and changing his apparel, brought him into him. And he said to him, I have dreamed dreams, and there is no one that can expound them. Now I have heard that thou art very wise at interpreting them. Joseph answered, Without me, God shall give Pharaoh a prosperous answer. So Pharaoh told what he had dreamed. Methought I stood upon the bank of the river, and 7 kine came up out of the river exceeding beautiful and full of flesh, and they grazed on green places in a marshy pasture. And behold, there followed these, other 7 kine, so very ill-favored and lean, that I never saw the like in the land of Egypt, and they devoured and consumed the former. And yet gave no mark of their being full, but were as lean and ill-favored as before. I awoke, and then fell asleep again, and dreamed a dream. 7 ears of corn grew upon one stalk, full and very fair. Other 7 also thin and blasted, sprung of the stalk, and they devoured the beauty of the former. I told this dream to the conjecturers, and there is no man that can expound it. Joseph answered, The king's dream is one. God hath shown to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 beautiful kine, and the 7 full ears, are 7 years of plenty, and both contain the same meaning of the dream. And the 7 lean and thin kine that came up after them, and the 7 thin ears that were blasted with the burning wind, are 7 years of famine to come, which shall be fulfilled in this order. Behold, there shall come 7 years of great plenty in the whole land of Egypt, after which shall follow other 7 years of so great scarcity, that all the abundance before shall be forgotten, for the famine shall consume all the land. And the greatness of the scarcity shall destroy the greatness of the plenty. And for that thou didst see the second time a dream pertaining to the same thing, it is a token of the certainty, and that the word of God cometh to pass, and is fulfilled speedily. Now therefore let the king provide a wise and industrious man, and make him ruler over the land of Egypt, that he may appoint overseers over all the countries, and gather into barns the 5th part of the fruits, during the 7 fruitful years, that shall now presently ensue, and let all the corn be laid up under Pharaoh's hands and be reserved in the cities. And let it be in readiness, against the famine of 7 years to come, which shall oppress Egypt, and the land shall not be consumed with scarcity. The counsel pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. And he said to them, Can we find such another man, that is full of the Spirit of God? He said therefore to Joseph, Seeing God hath shown thee all that thou hast said, can I find one wiser and one like unto thee? Thou shalt be over my house, and that the commandment of thy mouth all the people shall obey, only in the kingly throne will I be above thee. And again Pharaoh said to Joseph, Behold, I have appointed thee over the whole land of Egypt. And he took his ring from his own hand, and gave it into his hand, and he put upon him a robe of silk, and put a chain of gold about his neck. And he made him go up into his second chariot, the crier proclaiming that all should bow their knee before him, and that they should know he was made governor over the whole land of Egypt. And the king said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, without thy commandment no man shall move hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And he turned his name, and called him in the Egyptian tongue, the Savior of the world. And he gave him to wife Azith the daughter of Potiphar priest of Heliopolis. Then Joseph went out to the land of Egypt. The Savior of the world, Zaphnaphania. Now he was 30 years old when he stood before King Pharaoh, and he went round all the countries of Egypt. And the fruitfulness of the 7 years came, and the corn being bound up into sheaves was gathered together into the barns of Egypt. And all the abundance of grain was laid up in every city. And there was so great abundance of wheat, that it was equal to the sand of the sea, and the plenty exceeded measure. And before the famine came, Joseph had 2 sons born, whom Azith the daughter of Potiphar priest of Heliopolis bore unto him. And he called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, saying, God hath made me to forget all my labors, and my father's house. And he named the second Ephraim, saying, God hath made me to grow in the land of my poverty. Now when the 7 years of the plenty that had been in Egypt were past, the 7 years of scarcity, which Joseph had foretold, began to come, and the famine prevailed in the whole world, but there was bread in all the land of Egypt. And when there also they began to be famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. And he said to them, Go to Joseph, and do all that he shall say to you. Manasseh, that is, oblivion, or forgetting. Ephraim, that is, fruitful, or growing. And the famine increased daily in all the land, and Joseph opened all the barns, and sold to the Egyptians, for the famine had oppressed them also. And all provinces came into Egypt, to buy food, and to seek some relief of their want. Jacob sendeth his 10 sons to buy corn in Egypt. Their treatment by Joseph. And Jacob hearing that food was sold in Egypt, said to his sons, Why are ye careless? I have heard that wheat is sold in Egypt, go ye down, and buy us necessaries, that we may live, and not be consumed with want. So the 10 brethren of Joseph went down, to buy corn in Egypt, whilst Benjamin was kept at home by Jacob, who said to his brethren, Lest perhaps he take any harm in the journey. And they entered into the land of Egypt with others that went to buy. For the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was governor in the land of Egypt, and corn was sold by his direction to the people. And when his brethren had bowed down to him, and he knew them, he spoke as it were to strangers somewhat roughly, asking them, Whence came you? They answered, From the land of Canaan, to buy necessaries of life. And though he knew his brethren, he was not known by them. And remembering the dreams, which formerly he had dreamed, he said to them, You are spies. You are come to view the weaker parts of the land. But they said, It is not so, my lord, but thy servants are come to buy food. You are spies, this he said by way of examining them, to see what they would answer. We are all the sons of one man, we are come as peaceable men, neither do thy servants go about any evil. And he answered them, It is otherwise, you are come to consider the unfenced parts of this land. But they said, We thy servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan, the youngest is with our father, the other is not living. He saith, This is it that I said, You are spies. I shall now presently try what you are, by the health of Pharaoh you shall not depart hence, until your youngest brother come. Send one of you to fetch him, and you shall be in prison, till what you have said be proved, whether it be true or false, or else by the health of Pharaoh you are spies. So he put them in prison 3 days. And the 3rd day he brought them out of prison, and said, Do as I have said, and you shall live, for I fear God. If you be peaceable men, let one of your brethren be bound in prison, and go ye your ways and carry the corn that you have bought, unto your houses. And bring your youngest brother to me, that I may find your words to be true, and you may not die. They did as he had said. Or else by the health of Pharaoh you are spies, that is, if these things you say be proved false, you are to be held for spies for your lying, and shall be treated as such. Joseph dealt in this manner with his brethren, to bring them by the means of affliction to a sense of their former sin, and a sincere repentance for it. And they talked one to another, We deserve to suffer these things, because we have sinned against our brother, seeing the anguish of his soul, when he besought us, and we would not hear, therefore is this affliction come upon us. And Reuben one of them, said, Did not I say to you, Do not sin against the boy, and you would not hear me? Behold his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood, because he spoke to them by an interpreter. And he turned himself away a little while, and wept, and returning he spoke to them. And taking Simeon, and binding him in their presence, he commanded his servants to fill their sacks with wheat, and to put every man's money again in their sacks, and to give them besides provisions for the way, and they did so. But they having loaded their asses with the corn, went their way. And one of them opening his sack, to give his beast provender in the inn, saw the money in the sack's mouth, and said to his brethren, My money is given me again, behold it is in the sack. And they were astonished, and troubled, and said to one another, What is this that God hath done unto us? And they came to Jacob their father in the land of Chanaan, and they told him all things that had befallen them, saying, The Lord of the land spoke roughly to us, and took us to be spies of the country. And we answered him, We are peaceable men, and we mean no plot. We are 12 brethren born of one father, one is not living, the youngest is with our father in the land of Chanaan. And he said to us, Hereby shall I know that you are peaceable men, leave one of your brethren with me, and take ye necessary provision for your houses, and go your ways. And bring your youngest brother to me, that I may know you are not spies, and you may receive this man again, that is kept in prison, and afterwards may have leave to buy what you will. When they had told this, they poured out their corn, and every man found his money tied in the mouth of his sack, and all being astonished together. Their father Jacob said, You have made me to be without children, Joseph is not living, Simeon is kept in bonds, and Benjamin you will take away, all these evils are fallen upon me. And Reuben answered him, Kill my 2 sons if I bring him not again to thee, deliver him into my hand, and I will restore him to thee. But he said, My son shall not go down with you, his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If any mischief befall him in the land to which you go, you will bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to hell. To hell, that is, to that place, where the souls then remained, as above, chapter 37. Verse 35. The sons of Jacob go again into Egypt with Benjamin. They are entertained by Joseph. In the meantime the famine was heavy upon all the land. And when they had eaten up all the corn, which they had brought out of Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, Go again and buy us a little food. Judah answered, The man declared unto us with the attestation of an oath, saying, You shall not see my face, unless you bring your youngest brother with you. If therefore thou wilt send him with us, we will set out together, and will buy necessaries for thee. But if thou wilt not, we will not go, for the man, as we have often said, declared unto us, saying, You shall not see my face without your youngest brother. Israel said to them, You have done this for my misery, in that you told him you had also another brother. But they answered, The man asked us in order concerning our kindred, if our father lived, if we had a brother, and we answered him regularly, according to what he demanded. Could we know that he would say, Bring hither your brother with you? And Judah said to his father, Send the boy with me, that we may set forward, and may live, lest both we and our children perish. I take the boy upon me, require him at my hand, unless I bring him again, and restore him to thee, I will be guilty of sin against thee forever. If delay had not been made, we had been here again the second time. Then Israel said to them, If it must needs be so, do what you will, take of the best fruits of the land in your vessels, and carry down presents to the man, a little balm, and honey, and storax, myrrh, turpentine, and almonds. And take with you double money, and carry back what you found in your sacks, lest perhaps it was done by mistake. And take also your brother, and go to the man. And may my Almighty God make him favorable to you, and send back with you your brother, whom he keepeth, and this Benjamin, and as for me I shall be desolate without children. So the men took the presents, and double money, and Benjamin, and went down into Egypt, and stood before Joseph. Balm, literally rosin, resiny, but here by that name is meant balm. And when he had seen them, and Benjamin with them, he commanded the steward of his house, saying, Bring in the men into the house, and kill victims, and prepare a feast, because they shall eat with me at noon. He did as he was commanded, and brought the men into the house. And they being much afraid, said there one to another, Because of the money, which we carried back the first time in our sacks, we are brought in, that he may bring upon us a false accusation, and by violence make slaves of us and our asses. Wherefore going up to the steward of the house, at the door, they said, Sir, we desire thee to hear us, we came down once before to buy food. And when we had bought, and come to the inn, we opened our sacks, and found our money in the mouths of the sacks, which we have now brought again in the same weight. And we have brought other money besides, to buy what we want, we cannot tell who put it in our bags. But he answered, Peace be with you, fear not, your God, and the God of your father hath given you treasure in your sacks. For the money, which you gave me, I have for good. And he brought Simeon out to them. And having brought them into the house, he fetched water, and they washed their feet, and he gave provender to their asses. But they made ready the presents, against Joseph came at noon, for they had heard that they should eat bread there. Then Joseph came into his house, and they offered him the presents holding them in their hands, and they bowed down with their face to the ground. But he, courteously saluting them again, asked them, saying, Is the old man your father in health, of whom you told me? Is he yet living? And they answered, Thy servant our father is in health, he is yet living. And bowing themselves they made obeisance to him. And Joseph lifting up his eyes, saw Benjamin his brother, by the same mother, and said, Is this your young brother, of whom you told me? And he said, God be gracious to thee, my son. And he made haste because his heart was moved upon his brother, and tears gushed out, and going into his chamber he wept. And when he had washed his face, coming out again, he refrained himself, and said, Set bread on the table. And when it was set on, for Joseph apart, and for his brethren apart, for the Egyptians also that ate with him, apart, for it is unlawful for the Egyptians to eat with the Hebrews, and they think such a feast profane, they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his age. And they wondered very much, taking the messes which they received of him, and the greater mess came to Benjamin, so that it exceeded by 5 parts. And they drank, and were merry with him. Joseph's contrivance to stop his brethren. The humble supplication of Judah. And Joseph commanded the steward of his house, saying, Fill their sacks with corn, as much as they can hold, and put the money of every one in the top of his sack. And in the mouth of the younger's sack put my silver cup, and the price which he gave for the wheat. And it was so done. And when the morning arose, they were sent away with their asses. And when they were now departed out of the city, and had gone forward a little way, Joseph sending for the steward of his house, said, Arise, and pursue after the men, and when thou hast overtaken them, say to them, Why have you returned evil for good? The cup which you have stolen is that in which my Lord drinketh, and in which he is wont to divine, you have done a very evil thing. He did as he had commanded him. And having overtaken them, he spoke to them the same words. And they answered, Why doth our Lord speak so, as though thy servants had committed so heinous a fact? The money, that we found in the top of our sacks, we brought back to thee from the land of Chanaan. How then should it be that we should steal out of thy Lord's house, gold or silver? With whomsoever of thy servants shall be found that which thou seekest, let him die, and we will be the bondmen of my Lord. And he said to them, Let it be according to your sentence, with whomsoever it shall be found, let him be my servant, and you shall be blameless. Then they speedily took down their sacks to the ground, and every man opened his sack. Which when he had searched, beginning at the eldest and ending at the youngest, he found the cup in Benjamin's sack. Then they rent their garments, and loading their asses again, returned into the town. And Judah at the head of his brethren went into Joseph, for he was not yet gone out of the place, and they all together fell down before him on the ground. And he said to them, Why would you do so? Know you not that there is no one like me in the science of divining? The science of divining, he speaks of himself according to what he was esteemed in that kingdom. And indeed, he being truly a prophet, knew more without comparison than any of the Egyptian sorcerers. And Judah said to him, What shall we answer my lord? Or what shall we say, or be able justly to allege? God hath found out the iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are all bondmen to my lord, both we, and he with whom the cup was found. Joseph answered, God forbid that I should do so. He that stole the cup, he shall be my bondman, and go you away free to your father. Then Judah coming nearer, said boldly, I beseech thee, my lord, let thy servant speak a word in thy ears, and be not angry with thy servant, for after Pharaoh thou art, my lord. Thou didst ask thy servants the first time, Have you a father or a brother? And we answered thee, My lord, we have a father an old man, and a young boy, that was born in his old age, whose brother by the mother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother, and his father loveth him tenderly. And thou saidst to thy servants, Bring him hither to me, and I will set my eyes on him. We suggested to my lord, The boy cannot leave his father, for if he leave him, he will die. And thou saidst to thy servants, Except your youngest brother come with you, you shall see my face no more. Therefore when we were gone up to thy servant our father, we told him all that my lord had said. And our father said, Go again, and buy us a little wheat. And we said to him, We cannot go, if our youngest brother go down with us, we will set out together, otherwise, without him we dare not see the man's face. Whereunto he answered, You know that my wife bore me too. One went out, and you said, A beast devoured him, and hitherto he appeareth not. If you take this also, and anything befall him in the way, you will bring down my gray hairs with sorrow unto hell. Therefore if I shall go to thy servant our father, and the boy be wanting, whereas his life dependeth upon the life of him, and he shall see that he is not with us, he will die, and thy servants shall bring down his gray hairs with sorrow unto hell. Let me be thy proper servant, who took him into my trust, and promised, saying, If I bring him not again, I will be guilty of sin against my father forever. Therefore I thy servant will stay instead of the boy in the service of my lord, and let the boy go up with his brethren. For I cannot return to my father without the boy, lest I be a witness of the calamity that will oppress my father. His gray hairs, that is, his person, now far advanced in years. With sorrow unto hell, the Hebrew word for hell is here Sheol, the Greek Hades. It is not taken for the hell of the damned, but for that place of souls below where the servants of God were kept before the coming of Christ. Which place, both in the Scripture and in the Creed, is named hell. Joseph maketh himself known to his brethren, and sendeth for his father. Joseph could no longer refrain himself before many that stood by, whereupon he commanded that all should go out, and no stranger be present at their knowing one another. And he lifted up his voice with weeping, which the Egyptians and all the house of Pharaoh heard. And he said to his brethren, I am Joseph, is my father yet living? His brethren could not answer him, being struck with exceeding great fear. And he said mildly to them, Come nearer to me. And when they were come near him, he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Be not afraid, and let it not seem to you a hard case that you sold me into these countries, for God sent me before you into Egypt for your preservation. For it is 2 years since the famine began to be upon the land, and 5 years more remain, wherein there can be neither plowing nor reaping. And God sent me before, that you may be preserved upon the earth, and may have food to live. Not by your counsel was I sent hither, but by the will of God, who hath made me as it were a father to Pharaoh, and lord of his whole house, and governor in all the land of Egypt. Make haste, and go ye up to my father, and say to him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me lord of the whole land of Egypt, come down to me, linger not. And thou shalt dwell in the land of Jeson, and thou shalt be near me, thou and thy sons, and thy sons' sons, thy sheep, and thy herds, and all things that thou hast, and there I will feed thee, for there are yet 5 years of famine remaining, lest both thou perish, and thy house, and all things that thou hast. Behold, your eyes, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see that it is my mouth that speaketh to you. You shall tell my father of all my glory, and all things that you have seen in Egypt, make haste and bring him to me. And falling upon the neck of his brother Benjamin, he embraced him and wept, and Benjamin in like manner wept also on his neck. And Joseph kissed all his brethren, and wept upon every one of them, after which they were emboldened to speak to him. And it was heard, and the fame was abroad in the king's court, the brethren of Joseph are come, and Pharaoh with all his family was glad. And he spoke to Joseph that he should give orders to his brethren, saying, Load your beasts, and go into the land of Canaan. And bring away from thence your father and kindred, and come to me, and I will give you all the good things of Egypt, that you may eat the marrow of the land. Give orders also that they take wagons out of the land of Egypt, for the carriage of their children and their wives, and say, Take up your father, and make haste to come with all speed, and leave nothing of your household stuff, for all the riches of Egypt shall be yours. And the sons of Israel did as they were bid. And Joseph gave them wagons according to Pharaoh's commandment, and provisions for the way. He ordered also to be brought out for every one of them 2 robes, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver with 5 robes of the best, sending to his father as much money and raiment, adding besides 10 he-asses to carry off all the riches of Egypt, and as many she-asses, carrying wheat and bread for the journey. So he sent away his brethren, and at their departing said to them, Be not angry in the way. And they went up out of Egypt, and came into the land of Canaan to their father Jacob. And they told him, saying, Joseph thy son is living, and he is ruler in all the land of Egypt. Which when Jacob heard, he awaked as it were out of a deep sleep, yet did not believe them. They, on the other side, told the whole order of the thing. And when he saw the wagons and all that he had sent, his spirit revived, and he said, It is enough for me, if Joseph my son be yet living, I will go and see him before I die. Israel, warned by a vision from God, goeth down into Egypt with all his family. And Israel taking his journey, with all that he had, came to the well of the oath, and killing victims there to the God of his father Isaac, he heard him by a vision in the night calling him, and saying to him, Jacob, Jacob. And he answered him, Lo, here I am. God said to him, I am the most mighty God of thy father, fear not, go down into Egypt, for I will make a great nation of thee there. I will go down with thee thither, and will bring thee back again from thence. Joseph also shall put his hands upon thy eyes. And Jacob rose up from the well of the oath, and his sons took him up, with their children and wives in the wagons, which Pharaoh had sent to carry the old men. The well of the oath, verse AB. And all that he had in the land of Canaan, and he came into Egypt with all his seed, his sons, and grandsons, daughters, and all his offspring together. And these are the names of the children of Israel, that entered into Egypt, he and his children. His firstborn Reuben, the sons of Reuben, Enoch and Phalu, and Hezron and Charmi. The sons of Simeon, Jamuel and Jamin and Aad, and Jachin and Sohar, and Saul the son of a woman of Chanaan. The sons of Levi, Gerson and Kath and Merari. The sons of Judah, Hur and Onan and Selah and Phares and Zara. And Hur and Onan died in the land of Chanaan. And sons were born to Phares, Hezron and Hamul. The sons of Issachar, Thola and Phua and Job and Semron. The sons of Zabulon, Sarad and Elon and Jael. These are the sons of Leah, whom she bore in Mesopotamia of Syria, with Dinah his daughter. All the souls of her sons and daughters, 33. The sons of Gad, Saphian and Haggi and Suni and Esebon and Hari and Arodi and Areli. The sons of Aser, Jam and Jesua and Jeshri and Beriah, and Sarah their sister. The sons of Beriah, Heber and Melchiel. These are the sons of Zelpha, whom Laban gave to Leah his daughter. And these she bore to Jacob, 16 souls. The sons of Rachel Jacob's wife, Joseph and Benjamin. And sons were born to Joseph, in the land of Egypt, whom Azith the daughter of Putiphar priest of Heliopolis bore him, Manasseh and Ephraim. The sons of Benjamin, Bela and Becher and Asbel and Jerah and Nimon and Ikki and Draz and Mophim and Ephim and Ard. These are the sons of Rachel, whom she bore to Jacob, all the souls, 14. The sons of Dan, Huzam. The sons of Mifli, Jaziel and Guni and Jezer and Salam. These are the sons of Bala, whom Laban gave to Rachel his daughter, and these she bore to Jacob, all the souls, 7. All the souls that went with Jacob into Egypt, and that came out of his thigh, besides his sons' wives, 66. And the sons of Joseph, that were born to him in the land of Egypt, 2 souls. All the souls of the house of Jacob, that entered into Egypt, were 70. And he sent Judah before him to Joseph, to tell him, and that he should meet him in Jesson. And when he was come thither, Joseph made ready his chariot, and went up to meet his father, in the same place, and seeing him, he fell upon his neck, and embracing him wept. And the father said to Joseph, Now shall I die with joy, because I have seen thy face, and leave thee alive. And Joseph said to his brethren, and to all his father's house, I will go up, and will tell Pharaoh, and will say to him, My brethren and my father's house, that were in the land of Chanaan, are come to me, and the men are shepherds, and their occupation is to feed cattle, their flocks and herds, and all they have brought with them. And when he shall call you, and shall say, What is your occupation? You shall answer, We thy servants are shepherds, from our infancy until now, both we and our fathers. And this you shall say, that you may dwell in the land of Jesson, because the Egyptians have all shepherds in abomination. Jacob and his sons are presented before Pharaoh, he giveth them the land of Jesson. The famine forceth the Egyptians to sell all their possessions to the king. Then Joseph went in and told Pharaoh, saying, My father and brethren, their sheep and their herds, and all that they possess, are come out of the land of Chanaan, and behold they stay in the land of Jesson. 5 men also the last of his brethren, he presented before the king, and he asked them, What is your occupation? They answered, We thy servants are shepherds, both we, and our fathers. We are come to sojourn in thy land, because there is no grass for the flocks of thy servants, the famine being very grievous in the land of Chanaan, and we pray thee to give orders that we thy servants may be in the land of Jesson. The king therefore said to Joseph, Thy father and thy brethren are come to thee. The last, extremos? Some interpret this word of the chiefest, and most rightly, but Joseph seems rather to have chosen out such as had the meanest appearance, that Pharaoh might not think of employing them at court, with danger of their morals and religion. The land of Egypt is before thee, make them dwell in the best place, and give them the land of Jesson. And if thou knowest that there are industrious men among them, make them rulers over my cattle. After this Joseph brought in his father to the king, and presented him before him, and he blessed him. And being asked by him, How many are the days of the years of thy life? He answered, The days of my pilgrimage are 130 years, few, and evil, and they are not come up to the days of the pilgrimage of my fathers. And blessing the king, he went out. But Joseph gave a possession to his father and his brethren in Egypt, in the best place of the land, in Ramesses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And he nourished them, and all his father's house, allowing food to everyone. For in the whole world there was want of bread, and a famine had oppressed the land, more especially of Egypt and Chanaan. Out of which he gathered up all the money for the corn which they bought, and brought it into the king's treasure. And when the buyers wanted money, all Egypt came to Joseph, saying, Give us bread, why should we die in thy presence, having now no money? And he answered them, Bring me your cattle, and for them I will give you food, if you have no money. And when they had brought them, he gave them food in exchange for their horses, and sheep, and oxen, and asses, and he maintained them that year for the exchange of their cattle. And they came the second year, and said to him, We will not hide from our Lord, how that our money is spent, and our cattle also are gone, neither art thou ignorant that we have nothing now left but our bodies and our lands. Why therefore shall we die before thy eyes? We will be thine, both we and our lands. Buy us to be the king's servants, and give us seed, lest for want of tillers the land be turned into a wilderness. So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt, every man selling his possessions, because of the greatness of the famine. And he brought it into Pharaoh's hands. And all its people from one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the other end thereof, except the land of the priests, which had been given them by the king, to whom also a certain allowance of food was given out of the public stores, and therefore they were not forced to sell their possessions. Then Joseph said to the people, Behold, as you see, both you and your lands belong to Pharaoh. Take seed and sow the fields, that you may have corn. The fifth part you shall give to the king, the other 4 you shall have for seed, and for food for your families and children. And they answered, Our life is in thy hand, only let my Lord look favorably upon us, and we will gladly serve the king. From that time unto this day, in the whole land of Egypt, the 5th part is paid to the king, and it is become as a law, except the land of the priests, which was free from this covenant. So Israel dwelt in Egypt, that is, in the land of Goshen, and possessed it, and grew, and was multiplied exceedingly. And he lived in it 17 years, and all the days of his life came to 147 years. And when he saw that the day of his death drew nigh, he called his son Joseph, and said to him, If I have found favor in thy sight, put thy hand under my thigh, and thou shalt show me this kindness and truth, not to bury me in Egypt, but I will sleep with my fathers, and thou shalt take me away out of this land, and bury me in the burying place of my ancestors. And Joseph answered him, I will do what thou hast commanded. And he said, Swear then to me. And as he was swearing, Israel adored God, turning to the bed's head. To the bed's head, St. Paul, Hebrews 11 verse 20 on, following the Greek translation of the Septuagint, reads adored the top of his rod. Where note, that the same word in the Hebrew, according to the different pointing of it, signifies both a bed and a rod. And to verify both these sentences, we must understand that Jacob leaning on Joseph's rod adored, turning towards the head of his bed, which adoration, inasmuch as it was referred to God, was an absolute and sovereign worship, but inasmuch as it was referred to the rod of Joseph, as a figure of the scepter, that is, of the royal dignity of Christ, was only an inferior and relative honor. Joseph visiteth his father in his sickness, who adopteth his 2 sons Manasseh and Ephraim, and blesseth them, preferring the younger before the elder. After these things, it was told Joseph that his father was sick, and he set out to go to him, taking his 2 sons Manasseh and Ephraim. And it was told the old man, Behold, thy son Joseph cometh to thee. And being strengthened he sat on his bed. And when Joseph was come into him, he said, God Almighty appeared to me at Luzah, which is in the land of Canaan, and he blessed me, and he said, I will cause thee to increase and multiply, and I will make of thee a multitude of people, and I will give this land to thee, and to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession. So thy 2 sons who were born to thee in the land of Egypt before I came hither to thee, shall be mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be reputed to me as Reuben and Simeon. But the rest whom thou shalt have after them, shall be thine, and shall be called by the name of their brethren in their possessions. For, when I came out of Mesopotamia, Rachel died from me in the land of Canaan in the very journey, and it was springtime, and I was going to Ephrata, and I buried her near the way of Ephrata, which by another name is called Bethlehem. Then seeing his sons, he said to him, Who are these? He answered, They are my sons, whom God hath given me in this place. And he said, Bring them to me that I may bless them. For Israel's eyes were dim by reason of his great age, and he could not see clearly. And when they were brought to him, he kissed and embraced them, and said to his son, I am not deprived of seeing thee, moreover God hath showed me thy seed. And when Joseph had taken them from his father's lap, he bowed down with his face to the ground. And he set Ephraim on his right hand, that is, towards the left hand of Israel, but Manasseh on his left hand, to wit, towards his father's right hand, and brought them near to him. But he stretching forth his right hand, put it upon the head of Ephraim the younger brother, and the left upon the head of Manasseh who was the elder, changing his hands. And Jacob blessed the sons of Joseph, and said, God, in whose sight my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, God that feedeth me from my youth until this day. The angel that delivereth me from all evils, bless these boys, and let my name be called upon them, and the names of my fathers Abraham, and Isaac, and may they grow into a multitude upon the earth. And Joseph, seeing that his father had put his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, was much displeased, and taking his father's hand he tried to lift it from Ephraim's head, and to remove it to the head of Manasseh. And he said to his father, It should not be so, my father, for this is the firstborn, put thy right hand upon his head. But he refusing, said, I know, my son, I know, and this also shall become peoples, and shall be multiplied, but this younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall grow into nations. And he blessed them at that time, saying, In thee shall Israel be blessed, and it shall be said, God do to thee as to Ephraim, and as to Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. And he said to Joseph his son, Behold I die, and God will be with you, and will bring you back into the land of your fathers. I give thee a portion above thy brethren, which I took out of the hand of the Amorite with my sword and bow. Jacob's prophetical blessings of his 12 sons, his death. And Jacob called his sons, and said to them, Gather yourselves together that I may tell you the things that shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together, and hear, O ye sons of Jacob, hearken to Israel your father. Reuben, my firstborn, thou art my strength, and the beginning of my sorrow, excelling in gifts, greater in command. Thou art poured out as water, grow thou not, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, and didst defile his couch. Simeon and Levi brethren, vessels of iniquity, waging war. My strength, he calls him his strength, as being born whilst his father was in his full strength and vigor, he calls him the beginning of his sorrow, because cares and sorrows usually come on with the birth of children. Excelling in gifts, etc., because the firstborn had a title to a double portion, and to have the command over his brethren, which Reuben forfeited by his sin, being poured out as water, that is, spilt and lost. Grow thou not, this was not meant by way of a curse or imprecation, but by way of a prophecy foretelling that the tribe of Reuben should not inherit the preeminence as usually annexed to the first birthright, viz., the double portion, the being prince or lord over the other brethren, and the priesthood, of which the double portion was given to Joseph, the princely office to Judah, and the priesthood to Levi. Let not my soul go into their council, nor my glory be in their assembly, because in their fury they slew a man, and in their self-will they undermined a wall. Cursed be their fury, because it was stubborn, and their wrath because it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob, and will scatter them in Israel. Judah, thee shall thy brethren praise, thy hands shall be on the necks of thy enemies, the sons of thy father shall bow down to thee. Judah is a lioness whelp, to the prey, my son, thou art gone up, resting thou hast couched as a lion, and as a lioness, who shall rouse him? The scepter shall not be taken away from Judah, nor a ruler from his thigh, till he come that is to be sent, and he shall be the expectation of nations. Slew a man, viz., Sycham the son of Hemer, with all his people. General, mystically and prophetically it alludes to Christ, whom their posterity, viz., the priests and the scribes, put to death. A lion's whelp, this blessing of Judah foretelleth the strength of his tribe, the fertility of his inheritance, and principally that the scepter in legislative power should not be utterly taken away from his race till about the time of the coming of Christ, as in effect it never was, which is a demonstration against the modern Jews, that the Messiah is long since come, for the scepter has long since been utterly taken away from Judah. Tying his foal to the vineyard, and his ass, O my son, to the vine. he shall wash his robe in wine, and his garment in the blood of the grape. His eyes are more beautiful than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. Zabulon shall dwell on the seashore, and in the road of ships, reaching as far as Sidon. Issachar shall be a strong ass lying down between the borders. He saw rest that it was good, and the land that it was excellent, and he bowed his shoulder to carry, and became a servant under tribute. Dan shall judge his people like another tribe in Israel. Let Dan be a snake in the way, a serpent in the path, that beateth the horse's heels that his rider may fall backward. I will look for thy salvation, O Lord. Gad, being girded, shall fight before him, and he himself shall be girded backward. Aser, his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield dainties to kings. Dan shall judge. This was verified in Samson, who was of the tribe of Dan, and began to deliver Israel. Judges. But as this deliverance was but temporal and very imperfect, the holy patriarch, aspires after another kind of deliverer, saying, I will look for thy salvation, O Lord. Gad being girded, it seems to allude to the tribe of Gad, when after they had received for their lot the land of Galilee, they marched in arms before the rest of the Israelites, to the conquest of the land of Chanaan, from whence they afterwards returned loaded with spoils. See Jos. And Nephi, a heart let loose, and giving words of beauty. Joseph is a growing son and comely to behold. The daughters run to and fro upon the wall. But they that held darts provoked him, and quarreled with him, and envied him. His bow rested upon the strong, and the bands of his arms and his hands were loosed, by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. Thence he came forth a pastor, the stone of Israel. The God of thy father shall be thy helper, and the Almighty shall bless thee with the blessings of heaven above, with the blessings of the deep that lieth beneath, with the blessings of the breasts and of the womb. Run to and fro, to behold his beauty, whilst his envious brethren turned their darts against him, etc. His bow rested upon the strong, that is, upon God, who was his strength, who also loosed his bands, and brought him out of prison to be the pastor, that is, the feeder and ruler of Egypt, and the stone, that is, the rock and support of Israel. The blessings of thy father are strengthened with the blessings of his fathers, until the desire of the everlasting hills should come. May they be upon the head of Joseph, and upon the crown of the Nazarite among his brethren. Benjamin a ravenous wolf, in the morning shall eat the prey, and in the evening shall divide the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel. These things their father spoke to them, and he blessed every one, with their proper blessings. And he charged them, saying, I am now going to be gathered to my people, bury me with my fathers in the double cave, which is in the field of Ephron the Hethite, over against Mamre in the land of Chanaan, which Abraham bought together with the field of Ephron the Hethite for a possession to bury in. The blessings of thy father, that is, thy father's blessings are made more prevalent and effectual in thy regard, by the additional strength they receive from his inheriting the blessings of his progenitors Abraham and Isaac. The desire of the everlasting hills, these blessings all looked forward towards Christ, called the desire of the everlasting hills, as being longed for, as it were, by the whole creation. Mystically, the patriarchs and prophets are called the everlasting hills, by reason of the eminence of their wisdom and holiness. The Nazarite, this word signifies one separated, and agrees to Joseph, as being separated from, and more eminent than, his brethren. As the ancient Nazarites were so called from their being set aside for God, and vowed to him. To be gathered to my people, that is, I am going to die, and so to follow my ancestors that are gone before me, and to join their company in another world. There they buried him, and Sarah his wife. There was Isaac buried with Rebekah his wife, there also Leah doth lie buried. And when he had ended the commandments, wherewith he instructed his sons, he drew up his feet upon the bed, and died, and he was gathered to his people. The mourning for Jacob, and his interment. Joseph's kindness towards his brethren. His death. And when Joseph saw this, he fell upon his father's face weeping and kissing him. And he commanded his servants the physicians to embalm his father. And while they were fulfilling his commands, there passed 40 days, for this was the manner with bodies that were embalmed, and Egypt mourned for him 70 days. And the time of the mourning being expired, Joseph spoke to the family of Pharaoh, "If I have found favor in your sight, speak in the ears of Pharaoh, for my father made me swear to him, saying, Behold, I die, thou shalt bury me in my sepulchre which I have digged for myself in the land of Canaan. So I will go up and bury my father, and return." And Pharaoh said to him, "Go up and bury thy father according as he made thee swear." So he went up, and there went with him all the ancients of Pharaoh's house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, and the house of Joseph with his brethren, except their children, and their flocks and herds, which they left in the land of Jeson. He had also in his train chariots and horsemen, and it was a great company. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is situated beyond the Jordan, where celebrating the exequies with a great and vehement lamentation, they spent full 7 days. And when the inhabitants of Canaan saw this, they said, "This is a great mourning to the Egyptians." And therefore the name of that place was called, the mourning of Egypt. So the sons of Jacob did as he had commanded them. And carrying him into the land of Canaan, they buried him in the double cave which Abraham had bought together with the field for a possession of a burying place, of Ephron the Hethite over against Mamre. And Joseph returned into Egypt with his brethren, and all that were in his company, after he had buried his father. Now he being dead, his brethren were afraid, and talked one with another, lest perhaps he should remember the wrong he suffered, and requite us all the evil that we did to him. And they sent a message to him, saying, Thy father commanded us before he died, that we should say thus much to thee from him, I beseech thee to forget the wickedness of thy brethren, and the sin and malice they practiced against thee. We also pray thee, to forgive the servants of the God of thy father this wickedness. And when Joseph heard this, he wept. And his brethren came to him, and worshipping prostrate on the ground they said, We are thy servants. And he answered them, Fear not, can we resist the will of God? You thought evil against me, but God turned it into good, that he might exalt me, as at present you see, and might save many people. Fear not, I will feed you and your children. And he comforted them, and spoke gently and mildly. And he dwelt in Egypt with all his father's house, and lived 110 years. And he saw the children of Ephraim to the 3rd generation. The children also of Machir the son of Manasseh were born on Joseph's knees. After which he told his brethren, God will visit you after my death, and will make you go up out of this land, to the land which he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he made them swear to him, saying, God will visit you, carry my bones with you out of this place. And he died being 110 years old. And being embalmed he was laid in a coffin in Egypt.